Welcome back to the deep dive. Imagine a construction site. It's loud, there's dust everywhere, machinery is banging, the blueprints are being rewritten on the fly, and the project manager is 3 years old and currently crying because their banana broke in half.
That is a terrifyingly accurate description of the toddler brain.
It feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Today we are walking right into that chaos. We're tackling the years between 2 and 5.
Right, the construction years.
Exactly. Construction years. This is the era of the three-nager, the terrible twos, whatever, parent-shaming label you want to slap on it. But we're looking specifically at language development.
This is where it gets really interesting.
It is, because here's the hook, and this is what really grabbed me when I was going through the stack of research digests for this week. We have this, cultural obsession with language as a list.
A checklist.
A checklist, exactly. We think of it as, does my kid know the word for apple? Can they count to 10? Can they say please? It's a vocabulary inventory.
Right, we treat children like little dictionaries that we need to fill up.
But the sources we have in front of us, and we are looking at a really diverse stack here, from neurobiology papers to behavioral psychology digests, they paint a completely different picture.
A much more complex picture.
They suggest that language isn't just about words. It's actually this incredibly complex, high-stakes interplay of biology, emotion, environment, and regulation. It's not just a software update.
No, it's a hardware overhaul.
Yeah.
It is massive. And you are so right to point out that misconception. We often focus on the output, the performance.
Say hello to Grandma. What color is this?
Precisely. But the research we're analyzing today, and it covers everything from executive function to neurodivergent affirming practice, suggests that the spoken word is really just the tip of the iceberg.
It's the exhaust pipe of the engine.
That's a great way to put it. If we want to understand why a child speaks, or why they don't speak, or why they speak beautifully on Tuesday but just scream on Wednesday, we have to look at the engine under the hood.
And that is our mission today. We are going to move beyond the milestone checklist because, let's be honest, those checklists are just anxiety fuel for parents. And we are going to look at the mechanisms.
The how.
The how. We want to understand how things like regulation, connection, and play actually fuel the ability to speak.
And we need to be really clear about the scope here. We are focusing on children aged 2 to 5. This is a period of massive neurological construction. The brain is wiring itself up at a rate that is, frankly, hard to even comprehend.
It is the age of the paradox, isn't it? I mean, anyone who has spent time with a 3-year-old knows this feeling.
Oh, yeah.
You have a child who seems incredibly articulate one day, using full sentences, maybe even using a connector word like actually, correctly. They sound like a little professor.
And then the next day?
Or even the next hour, they lose their words completely and resort to screaming, pointing, or biting. It's baffling.
Precisely. And that tension, why they understand so much more than they can say, and why that ability seems to flicker on and off like a faulty light bulb, that's exactly what we are going to unpack.
Okay.
And I want to spoil the ending a little bit here. It's not random behavior. It's biology.
I love that. It's not random, it's biology. That's going to be our mantra for today.
It has to be.
So let's look at our source landscape. We have a stack of research digests and source texts here. We're looking at material on executive functions, specific language development mechanics, the science of guided play.
And even some really pivotal new stuff on neurodivergent affirming practice.
Right. And across all of this, what's the big theme?
If there's one unifying theme across all this literature, from the medical side to the educational side, it is this. Development is not linear.
Not a straight line on a graph.
Not at all. It is context dependent. A child's ability to use language isn't a fixed trait like their eye color. It's a dynamic skill. It changes based on how tired they are, how safe they feel, and what's happening around them.
Okay, so let's get into that engine room. We keep seeing this term pop up in the sources, almost on every single page, executive function. It sounds very corporate. It sounds like these toddlers are trying to run a Fortune 500 company while wearing a diaper.
In a way, they are trying to do something much, much harder than running a company. They are trying to manage the most complex organization on Earth, their own developing brain.
So break it down for us. What exactly is executive function, or EF as the papers call it, and why does a 3-year-old need it just to tell me they want a cracker?
It's a great question. So based on Research Digest 1 and Source 1, executive function is a set of cognitive control skills. You can think of it as the air traffic control system of the brain.
Air traffic control. Okay, I like that.
The brain have all these planes coming in, sensory input, emotions, desires, motor commands, and EF is the tower telling them where to land so they don't all crash into each other.
And without it, it's just chaos on the tarmac.
Total chaos. And the research generally agrees on three core components.
Okay, walk us through them. What's the first one?
First, you have inhibitory control.
Which is the brakes.
Essentially, yes. It's the ability to pause,
Hmm.
to stop an action, to resist an impulse. It's the difference between seeing a toy and just grabbing it immediately versus waiting for your turn.
Or not hitting your brother when he takes your truck.
Or not hitting your brother. And in terms of language, it's the ability to stop yourself from screaming when you're frustrated and instead try to find a word.
But wait, isn't that incredibly hard? I mean, I'm an adult, and I have trouble with inhibitory control when there's a plate of fresh cookies in front of me.
Exactly. It is metabolically expensive. That's a key point from source one.
Yep.
Using your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that does this, to say stop, uses a lot of energy. A lot.
So for a toddler.
For a toddler whose prefrontal cortex is barely online, this is like trying to stop a freight train with a bicycle brake.
Mm.
It requires immense effort. It's not a moral failing when they can't do it. It's a biological reality.
Wow. Okay, so we have the brakes, inhibitory control. What's next in the air traffic control tower?
Next is working memory.
The mental scratch pad.
That's the perfect term for it. It's the ability to hold information in your mind and then use it. So if you tell a child, go get your shoes and put them by the door, they have to hold that two-part instruction in their head while they walk across the room.
Which explains why they often walk across the room, see a single Lego piece, and completely abandon the shoe mission. They drop the file.
They didn't just ignore you. They didn't decide to be defiant. The Post-it note in their brain literally fell off.
Right.
The working memory capacity in this age group is very, very small. It's like a computer with very little RAM. Something else caught their attention, a shiny object, a sound, and it overwrote the data. The instruction is just gone.
That makes so much sense. It's not disobedience, it's a processing limit.
That's it, exactly.
Okay, so brakes and a scratch pad. What's the third component?
The third is cognitive flexibility. This is the ability to shift attention, to adapt to change, or to switch rules.
The gear shifter.
The gear shifter, I like that. It's how you handle it when you thought you were going to the park, but now it's raining and we have to stay inside.
That is a disaster scenario for many toddlers. That's a full meltdown in my house.
And that's because their cognitive flexibility is still so under construction. Shifting gears requires them to derail their current train of thought, which is chugging along very happily toward park, and build a brand new track instantly.
And that's hard.
For a developing brain, that is physically painful. The neural pathways are rigid. They can't just pivot. And that brings us to the key phrase from source one that you have to remember.
I think I know what you're going to say.
These skills are under construction.
Yes. And this leads us to what I found to be one of the most liberating concepts in all of the reading, the available, sometimes paradox.
This is crucial. This is the concept that changes how you view a child's behavior, and frankly, it can save your sanity as a parent.
So explain it. We fall into this trap, right?
We fall into the trap of thinking, well, he put his shoes on by himself yesterday, so he knows how to do it. If he doesn't do it today, he's being difficult.
Right. We interpret it as defiance. He's testing me. He's being lazy. He's just pushing my buttons.
But the research on executive function tells us that these skills are highly sensitive to the internal and external environment. It's a biological inconsistency.
It's not a consistent skill yet.
Not even close. Whether a child can access their inhibitory control or their working memory depends on a whole host of factors.
Like
Fatigue, hunger, sensory load. Is the room too loud? Stress, physiology, and emotional arousal.
Yeah.
If any of those things are out of whack, the EF system goes offline.
I came up with an analogy for this while I was reading. It's like a cell phone with spotty signal.
Okay, go on.
Just because you made a crystal clear call yesterday standing in your kitchen doesn't mean you have service today in the living room. The hardware is there, the phone works, but if the signal drops, you can't make the call. It's not the phone's fault.
That is a perfect analogy. Absolutely perfect. And the signal in this case is regulation.
Right.
If a child is tired or hungry, or if there's a loud vacuum cleaner running in the next room, the signal drops. You cannot demand output, whether that's good behavior or complex sentences, from a system that has lost its signal. It's physiologically impossible.
So let's talk about that signal. Let's talk about regulation. The sources distinguish between self-regulation and co-regulation. And I think there is a huge myth here that we need to bust.
Oh, a massive one.
Because I hear parents say this all the time. I need to teach him to self-regulate, which usually means I need him to go calm down on his own so I can have a minute.
It's a huge myth. We often think of self-regulation as a skill we need to teach children verbally, like go to your room and calm down. But Source 1 and Research Digest 1 make it very, very clear. Self-regulation is not innate. It is built.
You're not born with it.
You are not. And it is built through thousands and thousands of repetitions of co-regulation.
So you can't just tell a 2-year-old to self-regulate. That's like telling me to fly a plane just by showing me a picture of a cockpit.
Exactly. You can say the words, but they don't have the neural architecture to do it. Co-regulation is a dyadic process.
Dyadic, meaning?
It takes two people. The adult lends their calm, their structure, their organized brain to the child's disorganized, chaotic brain. The child literally borrows the adult's regulation until their own neural pathways are strong enough to do it alone.
They're downloading your calm.
They are. They're outsourcing their regulation to you.
I love the phrase developmental infrastructure from the text. It implies that co-regulation isn't just a soft parenting idea or, coddling. It's the concrete and rebar for the brain.
That's the critical piece. A lot of people worry that if they co-regulate, if they hug the child through the tantrum or help them calm down, they are somehow preventing independence.
That they're spoiling them.
Right. That you're not teaching them to stand on their own 2 feet. But the biology says the exact opposite. You are building the roads so they can eventually drive on them by themselves. You cannot demand output from a dysregulated system.
The signal is down.
The signal is down. The air traffic control tower has shut down. No planes are taking off. You have to reestablish that signal through co-regulation, through connection, safety, and calm, before you can expect any kind of learning or language.
Which is a perfect segue, because we want to talk specifically about language. We've established the engine, the brain needs to be regulated to work. Now let's look at the mechanics of speech itself, because Source 2 goes into deep detail about receptive versus expressive language.
Let's do it. This is where so much of the day-to-day frustration comes from.
I feel like most people, myself included, focus entirely on expressive language.
We do.
That's what we post videos of on social media. Look at her singing the song, or he said a new word.
Of course. Because it's the output. It's what we can hear and measure. Expressive language is the speaking, the vocabulary you use, the grammar, the articulation of sounds.
But that's only half the story.
Not even. Receptive language is the understanding. It's the internal processing of what you hear. And the cardinal rule of language development, the thing that trips up almost every parent, is that receptive language almost always develops ahead of expressive language.
The gap.
The gap. A 2-year-old might understand complex instructions like, go find the blue ball that rolled under the couch, which involves colors, objects, prepositions, locations.
That's a lot of data to process.
A huge amount. But they can only say ball, or maybe blue ball.
And this causes so much friction. I read in the source that this mismatch is a huge driver of what we call behavior issues. Why is that gap so psychologically painful for them?
Imagine this. Imagine being a fully conscious adult with complex thoughts, desires, opinions, and frustrations. But your mouth is taped shut and your hands are tied behind your back.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. You have the internal idea, I don't want the red cup, I want the blue cup, because the red cup smells funny and has a tiny chip on the rim. But your motor planning system, the part that controls your mouth, can only produce a scream.
You know exactly what you want to say, but the words won't come out.
The words won't come. You have the cognitive maturity to know what you want, but the motor planning, the incredible complex coordination of the tongue, lips, jaw, and breath needed for speech, is lagging behind. That gap is frustration incarnate.
So when the child screams, hits, or throws the cup,
they're not being bad. They are a desperate communicator who is stuck in the gap between knowing and saying. They're short-circuiting because their primary tool for communication isn't working yet.
And the key here is that this is developmentally normal. It's not a failure. It's not a sign of a problem. It's just lag.
It's lag. It's supposed to be this way. And understanding that changes how you react. Instead of seeing a bad kid who is screaming over a cup, you see a frustrated person who needs your help to bridge that gap.
Now, another thing that reassured me in the reading was the concept of bursts and plateaus. Because I think we expect progress to look like a straight, upward-sloping line on a graph. Every day, a few more words.
And biology rarely, if ever, works in straight lines. Language growth occurs in bursts.
Right.
You might see weeks or even months where it feels like nothing new is happening. The child is just using the same, 50 words over and over again. and parents get worried.
The panic sets in. Is he stalling? Did we do something wrong? Is something wrong with him?
Exactly. But the research shows that during those plateaus, the brain is in data collection mode. It is absorbing syntax, intonation, social cues, and vocabulary from everything you say. It's pruning synaptic connections to be more efficient.
It's quiet work.
It's quiet, invisible work. And then suddenly, usually when the foundational systems, the attention, the regulation, the memory, click into place and are having a good day,
The signal is strong.
the signal is strong. You get a burst. Over a weekend, they might gain 20 new words and start using 3-word sentences. It seems to come from nowhere.
So the plateau isn't wasted time. It's the download bar loading in the background.
That is the perfect way to describe it. The burst is just the installation finishing. And motivation also plays a huge role here.
The why.
The why. Children talk when they realize the communication works. When they say juice and they get juice, that is a powerful dopamine hit. That success drives them to try more complex structures. More juice, then I want more juice.
So success breeds more attempts.
It's the engine of language acquisition.
This brings us to another really important point from the sources: input quality. Research Digest 2 had some fascinating things to say on this. It's not just about talking at your child nonstop like a radio.
No, and actually, quality matters far more than sheer quantity. There's a specific type of talk called decontextualized talk that the sources highlight as being highly predictive of later vocabulary growth and reading comprehension.
That sounds fancy. Decontextualized talk. Break that down for us.
You just means talking about things that aren't happening right here, right now.
So not in the immediate context?
Exactly. Contextualized talk is, here's your shoe. Look at the red car. It's visible. It's present. Decontextualized talk is, remember yesterday when we saw that big fluffy dog at the park? He was barking so loud.
Oh, I see. You're forcing the brain to conjure up an image from memory.
Precisely. You are asking the child to build a mental representation of something that isn't in front of them. You are stretching their language capabilities beyond the immediate visual field.
It's like cognitive gymnastics.
It is. It forces the brain to rely solely on the words to create meaning, which is a much higher level skill. You're talking about the past or the future. What do you think will happen next in the book? Or about hypotheticals?
But at the same time, for the younger ones or the ones who are really struggling in that gap, the source also mentions input you can see. We shouldn't only do the abstract stuff, right?
Correct. That's the balance. For a child who is just starting or who has a language delay, you need to build the bridge. You use gestures. You point. You use observable context. You link the sound of the word apple to the physical red object in your hand.
You make the input visible.
You make it visible. That helps bridge that gap between the abstract sound and the concrete meaning. So the best language environment has a rich mix, grounding them in the here and now, with lots of visible cues to build basic vocabulary, and stretching them into the there and then to build complex thinking.
This feels like a good moment to talk about how we create the environment for all of this to happen, because we aren't talking about sitting them down with flashcards. We're talking about play.
Play. But not just any play. The sources, specifically Source 3 and Digest 3, discuss this very important concept of guided play.
Right, because there is this false dichotomy we often hear in parenting culture. It's either let them run wild in the woods and don't interfere, which is free play,
Total autonomy.
or sit them at a desk and teach them with a worksheet, which is direct instruction. Guided play is the middle ground.
It is the sweet spot. In free play, there is total autonomy, which is great for some things, social negotiation, risk assessment, creativity, but it might not be very efficient for learning specific vocabulary. If they never encounter a stethoscope in the woods, they won't learn the word.
Makes sense.
In direct instruction, there is no agency, which often kills motivation and curiosity. The child is just a passive recipient. Guided play is where the child still has agency. They're leading the play, but the adult has structured the environment or is participating in a way that nudges their attention toward a learning goal.
So give us a concrete example. What does this look like in a living room on a rainy afternoon?
Okay, let's say you want to work on spatial words under, over, next to through. In direct instruction, you'd show them a flashcard. This ball's under the table. It's boring, and the knowledge doesn't stick.
Right, no context.
In free play, they might just throw the ball at the wall for 20 minutes. In guided play, you might set up a construction zone with blocks and trucks and pillows. You get down on the floor with them.
And you become the site foreman.
You become the coworker. The enthusiastic but slightly clueless coworker. You say, oh no, the big dump truck is stuck under the pillow bridge. How are we ever going to get it out?
You're creating a problem within their play.
You're creating a problem and you're following their plot. It's their story, but you are injecting the target vocabulary right into the crisis of the play. They want to solve the problem, so they are motivated to use the words.
We need to lift it over the wall of blocks.
Exactly. And maybe you say, do we put it next to the tower or behind the tower? You are following their lead, but you are layering language on top of their deep interest. And this works because of psychological safety.
The stakes are low.
The stakes are zero. In play, there is no wrong answer. If you ask a child a direct question in a lesson, the stakes feel high. What color is this? There's a right answer and a wrong one.
And they know it.
They know it. And it can create that performance anxiety we talked about. But if it says pretend play is valuable because it is motivating, socially supported, and language-rich, it's not the act of pretending itself that is the magic. It's the rich conversation that happens while you are pretending.
So it's the context for the conversation.
It's the context. If two kids are pretending silently side by side, they aren't learning much language.
Okay.
But if they're arguing over who gets to be the wizard and what the rules of the spell are, that argument is absolute gold for language development.
Got it. So don't just send them off to pretend to be wizards and assume they're learning calculus. You have to be in there narrating the wizardry.
Or providing the wizard robes and asking, what spell are you going to cast next? It's the interaction that drives the growth.
The source also mentioned project-based learning or inquiry learning, even for this very young age, which sounds intense like they're doing a PhD thesis, but it really just means going deep, right?
It means valuing depth over breadth. Instead of doing a different theme every single day, Monday is colors, Tuesday is animals, Wednesday is shapes. Maybe you notice they're really interested in bugs. So for 2 weeks, all you do is bugs. You look for bugs in the garden, you draw pictures of bugs, you read books about bugs.
You build a bug hotel, you watch videos of bugs eating leaves.
Exactly. And that repetition allows the vocabulary to really stick. The first time they hear the word antenna, it's just noise. The 10th time, while they are gluing a pipe cleaner onto a cardboard box to make an antenna, it becomes a concept they own.
The repetition in a meaningful context.
That's the key.
So we've got play, we've got the engine of EF. Now I want to get really practical. Part 4 of our outline is about strategies for support. And I want to start with a trap that I think every parent, including myself, has fallen into, the quizmaster trap.
It is so common. And it comes from a good place. It comes from a place of love and anxiety. We want to know what they know. So we pick up an object and say,
what is this? What color is this? Say blue.
Say thank you. Say hello to grandma. What did the cow say? It's constant interrogation.
And source 2 warns us about this explicitly. It says, when we overcorrect or quiz or pressure a child to speak, we can actually inhibit expression.
We shut it down.
Well, I mean, it seems counterintuitive. I ask you a question, you answer. Why does it freeze a toddler?
Because it dramatically increases the stress load. Remember the phone signal?
It makes the signal spotty.
Exactly. When you put a child on the spot, you trigger a tiny fight-or-flight response. Cortisol goes up. And when that happens, the retrieval systems in the brain, the ability to find the word blue in the mental filing cabinet clamp down, you are making it harder for them to access the words they actually know.
So by asking, what is this?
Yep.
I'm actually making it harder for them to tell me what it is. That's the paradox.
That's the paradox. You are turning a moment of connection into a moment of performance. And if they're already struggling with language or feeling tired or just a bit overwhelmed, that performance anxiety can silence them completely.
So what is the alternative? If we want to help them, but quizzing is bad, what do? We can't just say nothing.
The alternative is responsive conversation. It's a simple shift from questioning to commenting.
From testing to narrating.
Perfect. Instead of asking, what is the dog doing? You say, look, the dog is running so fast. Wow, he is chasing the ball. You provide the model. You fill the silence with the rich language you want them to learn without demanding they produce it immediately.
You're feeding the brain, not auditing it.
That is a beautiful way to put it. You are feeding the brain, not auditing it. You are making deposits into their language bank account instead of constantly trying to make withdrawals.
Let's talk about another strategy, scaffolding. This term comes up in Source 6 and Digest 6. I feel like in the modern parenting world, there's a real fear of doing too much for our kids. We don't want to be helicopter parents creating fragile children, but scaffolding suggests we should be helping.
This is such a critical distinction. Scaffolding is not doing it for them forever. It is providing temporary support that makes success possible. Think of a literal scaffold on a building. You need it to build the structure.
But you take it down eventually.
Once the structure is stable, you take the scaffold down. You don't leave it there forever.
So how does that look with language? Give me a concrete scenario.
Okay, let's say a child is struggling to tell you what happened at preschool. They're getting frustrated, maybe whining, they can't find the words. A helicopter approach might be to just call the teacher and ask what happened, bypassing the child.
Right. And a sink or swim approach would be...
Saying, use your words, stop whining, which just adds pressure and shame. Scaffolding is meeting them in the middle.
So what do you say? What's the scaffold?
You lower the cognitive load. You might offer a choice. Did you play outside or inside today? That's much easier to answer than the open-ended, what did you do?
Because it's a 50-50 choice.
Exactly. Or you offer a sentence starter. I bet you played with the, and then you just wait with an expectant look. You give them the beginning of the sentence, so they only have to find the one word.
So you do the heavy listing of the sentence structure and let them just drop in the noun.
You carry the weight until they are strong enough to carry it themselves. And the paradox of help that's mentioned in the source is so important here. It says that helping doesn't prevent independence. It bridges to it.
Yes. The source said, if you remove help too early, if you take down the scaffold before the building is done, the wall just collapses.
It does. The child gets overwhelmed, dysregulated, and gives up. They stop trying to communicate because it feels too hard and they keep failing. By providing just enough support, you keep their stress levels low enough that they can actually learn the skill. Independence is the result of having been successfully supported.
That is going to stick with me. Independence is the result of successful support.
It's so counterintuitive to our cultural narrative, but the developmental research is crystal clear on this.
And this support doesn't need to happen in a special learning time with educational toys, right? Source 7 talks about everyday life as curriculum.
This is the good news for busy parents. You don't need a lesson plan. You don't need to buy expensive things. The best, most effective language learning happens during your boring, everyday routines.
Meal times, getting dressed, bath time, the drive to daycare.
Exactly.
Why are routines so powerful? Is it just because of the repetition?
The repetition is part of it, but it's really the predictability. Source 1 comes back here mentioning that predictability reduces cognitive load. If I know exactly what happens during bath time, water on, clothes off, get in, bubbles, wash, get out, towel, my brain doesn't have to waste energy figuring out the sequence of events.
It's on autopilot.
It's on autopilot.
Yeah.
And that frees up precious brain space to focus on the language. The water is so warm, let's make some big bubbles. Splash. Now let's wash your hair.
So the boring routine is actually a luxury for the developing brain. It creates the calm, predictable space needed for learning.
Exactly. Novelty is exciting and important, but routine is where the deep processing and learning happens because the safety and predictability are high and the cognitive load is low.
I want to shift gears now to something really important that came up in Source 5 and the Revised Digest 5. We've been talking about, normal development, although what is normal, really? But we know that brains are diverse. We need to talk about neurodiversity.
Yes.
Specifically relating to ADHD and autism in this age group, because this is where a lot of misunderstanding happens.
This is a vital part of the conversation. And honestly, it's where a lot of traditional parenting and educational advice completely fails. Often when we see a child who isn't speaking or who is having massive meltdowns or who can't sit still for a story, we label it as bad behavior.
Right. He's defiant. She's not listening. He needs a timeout. He just needs more discipline.
The neurodivergent affirming approach, which is gaining a lot of traction in the research, asks us to reframe that entirely. We need to stop trying to fix the child and start understanding their neurology. We need to view these differences, whether it's in sensory processing, attention regulation, or communication styles, as natural variations, not deficits.
The sources highlight an interesting overlap between ADHD and autism, particularly regarding that executive function piece we talked about at the beginning.
Yes. Both profiles often share significant challenges with executive function and regulation. Now, imagine a child with ADHD. They are wiggly, they are impulsive, they are distractible. Traditional discipline says if you don't sit still for circle time, you lose a sticker.
That's the compliance model.
That's a compliance model. But if the child has ADHD,
they might not be able to sit still.
They might know the rule. Intellectually, they understand they're supposed to sit still. But they lack the inhibitory control, that biological brake system we talked about, to actually do it in the moment. It is not a knowledge issue, it is a regulation issue.
So punishing them for moving is like punishing a child with a limp for not running fast enough. You're punishing the symptom of their neurology.
Exactly. Punishing them for a biological inability to inhibit an impulse only increases their stress. And what happens when stress goes up?
The signal drops. Regulation fails. Executive function goes offline.
And the behavior gets worse. It becomes a vicious cycle. You are punishing a dysregulated child, which dysregulates them further, which leads to more punishment.
So what is the environment-first approach that's mentioned in the text? How do we break that cycle?
Instead of trying to fix the child, you fix the environment. You become a detective. You ask, what is making success difficult for this child? If the child gets overwhelmed by the noise of circle time, you reduce the sensory load. Maybe they wear noise-canceling headphones or sit on a wobble cushion to get their wiggles out.
You accommodate their needs instead of punishing their struggles.
Yes. If they struggle with transitions, you use visual supports pictures that show what is happening next, so they don't have to hold it all in their fragile working memory.
And there was a concept called monotropism in the reading that I found fascinating, particularly in relation to autism. It's about attention tunnels, right?
Yes. Monotropism is a theory that suggests autistic brains tend to have a singular, intense focus, an attention tunnel. When they are in that tunnel, focusing on their deep interest, they are in a state of flow. They are regulated, they are calm, they are learning.
So if a child is obsessed with trains, deep in the train tunnel, and we try to force them to stop and learn about farm animals,
We are fighting their neurology. We are trying to drag them out of their tunnel, which is physically and emotionally painful and disorienting for them. The affirming approach says, get in the tunnel with them.
use the trains.
Use the trains. If they love trains, you count trains, you describe trains, you talk about the fast train and the slow train, you read books about trains. You leverage their deep interest as the vehicle for building language, rather than viewing that interest as a distraction to be extinguished.
And this aligns with NDBI, naturalistic developmental behavioral interventions, which is a mouthful.
It is, but the core idea is simple and powerful. The evidence supports interventions that share control. It's not, I am the adult, you do what I say. It's, we are playing together in your world, and I'm going to help you expand your skills within that world. It's about connection over compliance.
This brings us to a tricky but essential question. If we aren't quizzing them and we aren't doing standardized testing on 3-year-olds, thank goodness, how do we know if they are okay? How do we know if they are progressing?
This is part 6, observation and assessment. And it's a huge mindset shift. Source 4 talks about formative assessment.
Which sounds like a test.
It sounds academic and intimidating, but it's actually the opposite of a test. It's about observations, about looking for patterns over time, not judging single performances. You are watching the movie of their development, not just taking a single high-stakes snapshot.
The text mentioned learning stories. I love that term. It sounds so much more human and respectful than a report card.
It is. It's a documentation method used in many progressive early childhood systems. Instead of a checklist with can count to 10, yes, no, the adult writes a short narrative story about a moment they observed.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Today, Leo was arranging rocks in the garden. He lined them up from smallest to largest. He touched each one carefully, saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big rocks.
Wow. That gives you so much more context than just checking a box.
It tells you the context. He was engaged and focused in the garden. It tells you the skill. He is not just road counting. He is counting with one-to-one correspondence. And it tells you about his interest. He likes rocks and organizing things.
So it guides what you do next. It's not a judgment. It's a roadmap.
Exactly. It helps the adult ask, what helps this child succeed? If you notice from your learning stories that Leo talks and thinks more complexly when he is outside and moving, then your plan isn't to buy counting flashcards. It's to spend more time outside counting rocks and sticks.
You're assessing the conditions for success, not just the child's output.
That is the golden question. The reflection isn't, what is their score? It's, under what conditions does this child thrive?
And usually the answer to that is what we've been talking about this whole time.
It's always the answer. They thrive when they are regulated, when they feel connected and safe, and when they are genuinely interested.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. I mean, we've gone from the biology of the prefrontal cortex and executive function
To the mechanics of language lag, through the power of guided play.
and into the really important nuance of neurodiversity and affirming practices.
It is a lot, but I think if we boil it down, the summary is actually quite simple.
Okay, lay it on us. What are the key takeaways for the person listening to this on their commute feeling overwhelmed?
First, and most important, language is built on a foundation of regulation and relationship. You cannot build the penthouse, the complex sentences and witty jokes, if the foundation is cracking. If a child is stressed, the language stops, period.
And our mantra, available sometimes.
Yes, expect inconsistency. It is a feature, not a bug, of early childhood development. Just because they could do it yesterday doesn't mean they can do it today, and that is okay. It doesn't mean they are bad or you are a bad parent. It means they are building.
And finally, the role of help. Don't be afraid to help.
Please don't. Scaffolding creates independence. It doesn't stifle it. Being a partner, a guide, a scaffold, that is the job. Stop trying to pull the words out. Start creating the conditions for them to bubble up on their own.
So for our listener today who might be a parent, a grandparent, an educator, or just someone fascinated by how humans work, so what? What is the big shift they need to make in their thinking or their actions tonight?
I think the shift is moving from teacher-tester to partner-guide. Stop managing the output. Stop counting the words on the list. Focus on the input and the environment. Create a high-safety, low-pressure space where the child wants to let the words out because it feels good and it works.
You are creating the conditions for the signal to be strong.
Exactly. You are the cell tower. Be a strong, reliable signal.
I want to end with a thought that really stuck with me from Digest 6. It's a bit provocative, and it pushes back against a lot of our cultural instincts.
The ones about independence.
Exactly. We live in a culture that is obsessed with independence. We want our kids to be independent eaters, independent sleepers, independent players, everything as soon as possible.
Well, we do. We rush it. We treat dependence like a dirty word, like a failure.
But the research we've been discussing suggests that true, authentic, resilient independence is actually the long-term result of having been successfully dependent on a reliable guide.
It challenges everything we think we know. We worry that if we help them put on their shoes today, they will need us to do it forever. But the opposite is true. If we meet their needs, if we co-regulate them, if we scaffold their skills, they internalize that support. They build the internal infrastructure. And eventually, they walk away from us, fully equipped to do it themselves.
So are we rushing them to be independent before they have the infrastructure to sustain it? That is the question we will leave you with today.
It is the most important question we can ask.
Thank you for diving deep with us. We will see you next time.
See you next time.